Hello and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 99. Today we are talking about loneliness. And I think loneliness in general, but then especially loneliness on the spiritual path or the path of the healer practitioner as you're evolving on your journey. I'm Katherine Bird, and I'm here with my dear shaman sister, Michelle Hawk. And if you want to go ahead and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or add us to your favorites podcast list, and you'll get notifications about when we release these episodes, which is twice a month. On the first and the third Thursday, these come out. And so our last episode, we talked about family. We talked about our relationships. We talked about how when you're on a spiritual path, often there are new challenges that arise in our personal relationships. And kind of coming off the end of that is how that can also lead to a sort of feeling of loneliness. And what do you do about that? And what is this? And this can be kind of a big thing. I know I hear it from clients who are, in some ways it's like, okay, well, I just started on this spiritual path. It seems like I should feel less lonely. And all of a sudden I actually feel lonelier. So what the heck's going on? And how do we manage ourselves? We were like with our family, like, how do we manage ourselves, just our own being with ourselves? How you doing, Michelle?
I'm good. Yeah, I feel this is a topic that I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've had this experience of just this, like, and looking at what that loneliness can lead to in terms of our thought processes. This is something that I experience regularly, right? And some of it is, there's a lot of factors involved. Like the last time that I was really in that space was probably over midwinter, right? So there was a seasonal aspect. There was, Christian holidays. I don't tend to do super well with Christian holidays. There's a lot of family stuff happening. Was going through and have been going through like a really shitty breakup thing at the end of last year. And kind of redefining my relationship to community. So there were a lot of factors at play, but it's a thing, right? And it can be this almost weird juxtaposition of, okay, I'm on the spiritual path. I have more capacity for connection perhaps than ever before as I'm as we're opening ourselves up, and we're connecting with the divine, we're connecting with nature, we're connecting with others in this higher self sort of way. And yet there's almost this very tender, very human aspect of connection that when it's not fully nourished, or when it's not aligned in the most expansive way, can leave us with this really lonely feeling. Mm-hmm. And it's normal. It's a thing. And so if you're in this space, don't worry about it. Know that we've all been there, and we'll all be there again at some point. But, kind of what does that look like, and what do we do in those moments?
Yeah, because we talked about in the last episode about our family and our close friends. And as we're evolving and stepping into more of who we are, that there can be this feeling, very real feeling of disconnection, because you're no longer relating to the world in the same way. You're no longer relating to your family or people that you've known in the same way. You maybe are realizing the kind of superficiality that life has been living under, and you want to go deep, and you want to have deep conversations, and you want to have more intimacy and more communication. And maybe the people around you, they're not practiced in that. And that's not where they're at. They're not interested in that. They want to watch football and, have a cocktail, and like, that's it. They're not going deep. And then if you're sort of in the midst of that, and maybe also you're a mom and you are spending a lot of time with your kids, and you're taking care of everyone else, you're sort of being of service a lot. So you're you're not getting the nurturing that you maybe need, or as a practitioner, it can also feel extremely lonely. I know that I remember at one point, one of my mentors, we became very good, very close and very good friends. And I hadn't seen her for quite a long time because we were living in different cities. And I went to go and visit her, and she was just like, blah, 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 blah. She had all of this stuff to share and all of this stuff to say and all of this stuff to tell and all of this vulnerability and all of these things that had been going on and in her heart and different things. And it was like, wow, there's so much. And she was expressing that, like, I'm feeling there's so much that I am wanting to share with you and expose myself around, because everyone looks at me as the leader, as the healer, as the mentor, as the one who knows everything, as the one who has all the answers, as the one who's got all their shit together. And they don't even invite me to regular things, right? Because I'm this separate thing that is this special mystical swan that isn't like thought of as, oh, we're having a dinner party or we're going out for drinks. Like, I'm not going to invite, the super spiritual person or somebody who they're seeing at this certain level. And that can feel extremely lonely. So it can be anywhere along your journey that you're having these experiences in different ways.
Yeah. And with that also, if you are a practitioner, if you are holding space for other people, right? It can be, again, this weird juxtaposition of like the one-sided relationship, where maybe you are talking to a lot of people in the course of your day, if you've got like 5 sessions or whatever. So you're interfacing, whether it's in person or virtually, you're interfacing with all these different people. And, but then at the end of the day, it's like, was that actual connection that was really feeding that very human part of you that wants to be seen, that wants to be loved, that wants to be acknowledged? No, because, or not necessarily, I'll say, because it's a one-sided care relationship, and that's appropriate in the context of a professional relationship in as being a practitioner, but it's not necessarily nurturing to that part of ourselves that needs to belong.
Right. And then you add on to that we're also empaths and we're highly sensitive. So then I know that I've had the experience in my partnership of being very challenged with, well, I'm with these people being very, in a way, very intimate. I'm in their energy field. I'm listening very deeply. I'm being very connected when we're talking and I'm in session with this person. Like, all of my focus, attention, and energy is 100% on this individual and what they're going through. And then kind of at the end of the day being like over it. Like, I'm full. Like, my social quotient of what I can handle energetically because of being so sensitive and being an introvert is, I'm complete. Like, I'm done. But that doesn't mean that the things that are nurturing and soothing to me, like you're saying, Michelle, as a human, are being taken care of. And so that can be a really tricky dance where you're kind of full of interaction and communication and intimacy, and yet you're still yearning for something more. And that can feel like a loneliness that enters into the space.
Yeah, yearning for something more, and also maybe perhaps simultaneously needing some alone time.
Right. Like,
so
I really want, and I can't even deal, like, I can't deal with all of this people stuff, but I really want this.
Right. And I've definitely been in that position before, where it's sort of the experience of like, okay, I know that, yes, I have been interfacing, and I can look at my calendar and be like, well, I had all this, people time all day long. And so, it would feel really nice to have some alone time. Like, that's what I'm wanting, but I know it's going to feel really good to go to this dinner party. And then I do. And I'm so happy that I went, because it's a different type. It's a social interaction instead of a professional interpersonal interaction. So that's one piece of this, as a practitioner, either people seeing us a certain way and then not inviting us to things, or having the experience of, or, I should be good because I've been engaging with people all day, but it's not actually feeding me because it's a different type of care. So there's this. And then also just, I want to couple in the idea of truly being seen, right? And this is, this is one of my big shadow wounds that I've spent years working on, that I'm definitely in a much better place now than I have been, years ago. But it still pokes its head up when I'm feeling really vulnerable. And and this is one of these areas that I've seen in other people too, of when we're feeling, when we're feeling vulnerable, or we're feeling threatened or at risk, or we're already compromised in some situation, it can be really easy for us healer types or us light worker types to go to default to nobody understands me or nobody sees me. Mm-hmm. And then we're enforcing that isolation feeling. We're giving more energy to the feeling, maybe if we're already a little bit lonely, and then we're feeding into this idea of like, oh, well, I'm lonely because, I'm so weird, or I'm too woo-woo, or whatever stories it is that we've told ourselves or that people have told us, and then continuing to build that until it becomes a lot bigger than it actually is.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to be looking at, is what are the stories that are maybe infiltrating your experience. And so that might be that you're too weird or woo-woo, or it might be that you are realizing that you have some deep wounds and you have some stuff that you're working on, and you are working on old childhood things and trauma and stuff like that. And you might be coming up against these beliefs that you've been holding on to about being unlovable or being unworthy and all of these things. And so you have to look at where you are reinforcing those beliefs by repeating them inside of your head when you're in your regular day-to-day interactions, because that's something that we do, especially as things are coming up to be witnessed and seen and felt and healed. Our tendency is to hold on to them. Our tendency is to reinforce them and to create the conditions so that that's true. And so part of consciousness work and part of healing work is recognizing where those things are coming up and seeing them and seeing where the patterns are and seeing where it's like, well, no, I'm just not going to go to the thing because, nobody likes me. So that's also something to be really aware of in this process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to turn our attention to some of the tools around, well, what do we do in those moments when we are feeling really lonely? There's one thing that I want to speak to is the idea around the power of knowing your love language, right? And making sure that you are relating to people in a way that fills that up for you. And so, of course, if you're not familiar with the love languages, there's a ton of information on it. You can go ahead and look them up, but there's everyone has one primary and usually some combination of secondary, and then the other love languages. And I know that was a really big thing for me when, again, in that midwinter time, I was feeling really isolated. It was dark out. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was, processing icky breakup stuff. I was, feeling a lot of just questioning about social things in general and about my relationship to community and my friends, and how, I was in this relationship for the last couple of years. I kind of, let some of my closer friendships become a little less close, and looking at all these questions. And so one of the things that I did that was really helpful was, I know that my primary love language is touch. I need to physically touch people and hug them and have contact and, have hands in and have people next to me. That's one of the things that just makes me feel the most connected and the most nourished and uplifted. So I actively sought out opportunities to be in physical contact with people. So I made sure, when I was meeting up with friends, I asked for hugs and really good hugs too, not just quick hugs, but proper hugs, and going to dance and dancing with people and being in physical contact with people, making sure that I was really filling up that aspect of love language, especially in the context of going from being in a partnership to then being single, not having that same connection to physical intimacy. It was really important to me to fill that love language in other ways. And that made a big difference for me.
Yeah, that's really super smart.
Yeah. What are some things that you do in lonely experiences?
In the loneliness of life. Well, it's interesting because I've recently moved to a new city, a new state. I don't really have very many friends here. I am out on 5 acres. Like, it's not like I walk outside my door and there's people walking down the street. Like, that's not a thing. So that's pretty interesting to be in that space. And I was just thinking about a little bit around the kind of isolated aspect of what I've created here. And in some ways I have that, like, I just want to be alone, like, just leave me alone. And Michelle could attest to, like, I am not pleasant to be around if I have too much people. Like, I'm in general, like, I'm like, just leave me alone. And so on one hand, it's really good for me, but then on the other hand, it can feel like, wow, I really am alone. Like, I am very much alone here, building this little home by myself here. And there's not a lot of, I have my clients kind of in that same vein, right? I spend a lot of time talking to clients and to, that's about it, right? All day. So there's when I go out, I really make a point that when I'm at a restaurant eating by myself and shopping or whatever, to really look people in the eyes and smile and say hello, and to people who are checking me out, and to the waiter and stuff like that, just to, like, be in, like, humanity. Because especially if you're spending a lot of times kind of in the other realms and doing spiritual work and meditation and stuff like that, you can start to feel a bit dissociated from, like, real world human stuff. And it's often very helpful just to have conversations with very normal people about very normal, everyday things that are happening in the world or happening in the moment or whatever. So that's one thing. And then to have your people, like, to have your people that are your people, right? And I know that if I call Michelle, usually, if she's not working or whatever, she'll take the time to talk to me about whatever I have going on in my life. Or I have probably, like, a couple of other people that are, like, go-to people that I know that I can call. And even if I'm having a hard time, that they're going to be able to hold space for that, or they're going to be able to listen. And we're going to talk about life and normal-ish things and be able to support each other. And if they're having a hard time, I'm going to be there, and same. And with people who can, like Michelle said, like, see you and see all of you. Because especially if you are a practitioner, if you are a coach, if you're somebody who has I don't want to say facade, but you have this outward expression of who you are. Maybe you've done a lot of stuff and a lot of work, and, like, you're a mentor and you're a teacher and you've written books and you've done all these things, and yet still you're a human being, and you get to just be human and do fun, silly things. You get to, like, be creative and do things that are normal. And as much as you might be invested in your spiritual path and invested in being that 100% in the world, it's okay to do normal stuff. It's okay to go to brunch and have a cocktail and to, whatever, go bowling. Like, it's totally whatever normal-ish stuff that you can handle. Like, do it. Why not? And not like judge the time that you're spending doing that. Cause I think sometimes we do that when we're on this path. We're like, oh, that's not worthy of my very special spiritual time to go and do this very normal human thing with my family who's really into doing this normal human thing. Or, to get together with friends and sit around and drink wine because, that's not spiritual enough for my path. It's like, no, it's okay. It's okay to do that too. It's okay to not have your to not have to be so serious all the time, really, and to find things in your life that bring you joy that maybe don't have anything really to do with your spiritual path. And, I love to work on creative projects. So like last night I was up till 1:30 in the morning, like sewing things because I'm making a headboard and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm working on creative projects and building things and building a birdhouse. And so there's things that will nurture you that, that maybe aren't the things that you're thinking of because they seem too mundane. And that's really important to look at too.
Right. And looking essentially at, what is loneliness, right? Like where does that feeling actually come from? It's coming from a perceived lack, right? A lack of connection, a lack of love, a lack of life force, really, I do have to say aliveness is my favorite metric these days. And that's the questions that I'm asking myself are essentially around how does aliveness want to flow through my body right now? Or how does aliveness want to express itself in my life right now? And so I really see loneliness. Think about how you feel when you feel lonely. It's really contractive. It's not abundant. It's not flowing. It's almost this like you want to hold yourself and kind of go inward feeling or have some type of connection and validation. And so I see loneliness as this perceived lack of aliveness or this stagnation of vitality. And so the cure for this might be in the form of human connection and going out and talking with people and, getting together with your friends like that might be part of it. But as Kat was mentioning, there are also things that we can do to help us feel less lonely that don't actually have anything to do with other people. Right. So, if all your friends are busy and I've had this experience, I think it's so funny where every now and then I'll be in this, like, I really just want to get on the phone with somebody experience. And then I call Kat and she doesn't answer. I call someone else and they don't answer. Like I'm calling all these people and they're not picking up. And I'm just sitting with the experience of like, all right, I get to just be present in my loneliness. And I get to have the experience of not trying to change it and not judging myself for having this experience. Right. And I think that's valuable too.
And then you get to, when you're with that, there might be something inside of that for you. Like there might be some sort of healing that you're desperately looking for. Like the subconscious, you're desperately looking for. There's some sort of healing that you might be able to receive that maybe you've been distracting yourself your whole life. And you've been distracting yourself with your friends and your family and your job and your things and your this and your that and your whatever. And now you've started to kind of strip away some of those things maybe, or create more space for yourself, create more spaciousness inside your life. Maybe some of your friends, you're not hanging out with them anymore. Maybe you've left a relationship, like all of these, there's more space. Well, that space is, our tendency is, well, I need to fill this space. I'm a big doer. I'm like, I got to be doing something. I got to do something right now. I got to go do something. Now I'm doing this. Now I'm doing that. Big projects, all the things, all the time.
Even looking at it as something wrong, right? Like loneliness is a bad feeling, quote, bad feeling, right? And it's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. But, when I'm actually able to be fully present with that, usually what happens is I come to some sort of comfort in myself, and a lot of gratitude for just, and I remember even a couple of times just having the feeling of like, wow, I am so incredibly grateful for how uncomfortable I am right now, because this is part of my human experience, is to have this really painful emotion and have this experience that, yeah, I don't think I ever would have chosen it, but now that I'm here, it's really rich. It's really powerful. There's a lot of energy here. And then finding a different access point where actually there is aliveness in this experience. And it was me shutting myself off from that, shutting myself off from my own love, shutting myself off from my own humanity, my own connection. And that's what was feeling so bad. But now that I'm connected with, this like sweetness of this discomfort, all of a sudden I feel less lonely, and I'm actually able to be more present with myself in the experience.
Right. And you also get to look at like where your attachment and your desires and kind of that like neediness is. And that might be what you need to be sitting with in these moments of like, wow, I am really wanting, like I want so much. And to sit with, okay, well, where is that coming from? Like, where is that part of me that feels like it needs something? It is really attached to something being different than what it is. And then to sit with that part of the self and to welcome that part of the self into your consciousness and to start ask questions of that part of you, because that might be a part that really needs to be heard and witnessed and understood and loved, and to love that part of you that maybe didn't get their needs met as a child, or maybe hasn't felt loved and hasn't felt loved from you. And what would it take for you to love yourself a little bit more inside of this, and to love the part of you that is needy, and to love the part of you that has desire, and to engage with it in a way that helps it to settle. And like Michelle said, to be present now, to be present with, oh, okay, it's okay. It's okay to have these feelings, to have this neediness, to be in this space. And it's also okay to be present to that, to feel it completely. It's not going to kill me. And that's often where we're at, is that, this stuff comes up when we're kids, and then it gets reinforced time and time again. And then it becomes a very subconscious aspect of self that might be sabotaging things, or it might be creating, addiction in life. It might be creating conflict in some sort of way. So it's important to be able to sit with that part of self. I know that for me, when I was small, my mom was not the most like nurturing mother. She was very loving, but she was very loud and kind of hard and harsh and intense. And so I was a very sickly child. I was always very sick. And I remember being very, feeling like that essence of like that loneliness was like, oh, I'm very sick and I can't go to my mother because it's going to upset her, because she was very scared of me being sick and dying. So it would upset her and she would actually be angry. So there was this part of me that was like, I'm not okay and I'm wounded in some way. I'm not 100%. And I can't ask for help, and I can't ask for my needs to be met, and I can't ask for intimacy, and I can't, be vulnerable. And that is sort of a piece of loneliness. And so I can see where that comes up in my relationships, where there is that tendency to kind of keep separate and to, create distance, and to not be vulnerable, and to also feel rejected, right? That that rejection is just like part of the deal. So within that, there is that when I am in that essence of loneliness for me, there's that part that's like, oh, okay, like, there's still a little bit of unintegrated aspect of like, I am valuable and worthy of intimacy, love, connection, and vulnerability. And I'm okay, right? I am okay. Everything's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen, and I'm fine. So there's a lot of listening and learning that we can have when we're having these very uncomfortable internal experiences. And loneliness is one of them. And loneliness can inspire a lot of change and growth within us.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, one of the gifts I really see it offering is the ability to be present with ourselves unconditionally, you know, because if we're having the experience of being lonely, and then our first impulse, and I'm totally guilty of this too. Like, please don't think that I'm telling you to practice something that I am myself not practicing. The first impulse quite often is to alleviate the sensation, right? Of, you know, seeing somebody out, or like, you know, texting a friend, or like, hey, what are you up to? And that is the temptation of like, I feel bad and I want to not feel bad anymore. But ultimately doing that is a distraction from that real presence, and from being present unconditionally with the whole self, with the shadow parts of the self, with the conditioning, with the patterns, with everything that, you know, that is contributing to this experience. And the gift that we get as a result of that is so much more self-love and compassion and understanding and resilience, and the ability to be present in uncomfortable circumstances and to not shy away from that, which then of course impacts our ability to be present in any relationship, you know, in any, you know, personal relationship or professional relationship, or, you know, relationships with ideas, that we will then have that much more capacity and resilience to stand with in the vulnerability of others and the discomfort of others.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just changing, I think shifting that internal consciousness around, oh, this is what's coming up, this is what I'm feeling, and what is it there to teach me? And what could I receive value from in this? And then to be looking at like, what are your coping mechanisms? Because they're going to be different for everybody. So it might be having a cocktail, or jumping on Netflix, or calling a friend, or, you know, it might be all of these different things. And then you can see where that's been like a lifelong pattern where, you know, for me, I would say like engaging in media and stuff like that is a lifelong pattern that I have from this time when I was so young and was a child and wasn't getting my needs met, but I had a lot of access to media. And so that was a really easy way for me to soothe myself, because I wasn't getting what I actually wanted. And so then I can see where that will come up again. And then when we start to see the patterns, then we can start to make different choices and different conscious decisions to engage with things in different ways, and to find ways to work with our own self to get what we actually want. Because there's that, well, what am I looking for? Like, what am I wanting? What am I needing? What is this neediness that's here, that's present? Like, what's missing? And in the end, the realization may be that nothing is missing, that you are always connected, that there is always a source of love and light and appreciation and gratitude flowing toward you, if only you're willing to connect to it, if only you're willing to open your heart enough to stream toward it, you will also potentially be able to stream from it. And so this is also a practice that you can do if you are feeling this way and you're like, okay, well, they told me just to sit in it and this sucks. Then to actually just sit in it and to close your eyes and to start to feel your heart. And maybe your heart's a little wounded and a little sad and a little hurting. Maybe it feels constricted. So using the breath to let the heart relax and just feel like you're relaxing the muscle inside of the body, and we're letting the heart relax. You can take some really deep breaths and use a sound like and that ha sound will help to relax all of the energy of the heart and to release the tension in the body. And then to see if you can connect to some essence of gratitude, and some essence of gratitude for what is. And maybe that is repeating to yourself just things in your awareness. It's around you right in the present moment that you are grateful for, or things in your life that you're grateful for, and sort of feeling that and breathing those into the heart, and then allowing that to spread throughout your body and feel that heart opening happening. And then express that gratitude up and out towards the divine, towards your guides and teachers, towards your soul lineage, towards whatever it is that you feel connected to, whatever it is that you've been discovering about yourself, and to beam it as much as possible, just to beam gratitude and love out, up and out, like at a 45-degree, and then see how much you can allow yourself to receive back. And you can do that. You can connect it to your breath, where you're like giving and receiving and giving and receiving, or you can give for a while and then receive for a while, and just see if making those connections and being in that soft space can't soothe a little bit of maybe the tension of the earlier trauma pattern that might be there. So your nervous system has gotten activated because it's hooking into something from an earlier time in your life. And so you're retraining yourself to engage with it in a different way, in a less traumatized way, in a less nervous system activated way, and more in a soothed way. And just to see if that might not heighten your awareness that you are fully connected all the time. You're never alone.
Amazing. Great practice, Kat. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I hope that you all have gained something from this conversation. This is, again, a very normal part of being on this path. Kat's been there. I've been there. I can pretty much guarantee that you've been there too. And so please know that you're not alone. And so if you enjoyed and got something out of this episode or out of any of our episodes, please go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. You can also find all our episodes on Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Please go ahead and comment and leave reviews and let us know what you liked about this. And you can comment on the videos or send us an email to shamansistersessions@gmail.com. If you enjoy this work and if you get something out of this, please also, you can support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions, or you can send us a donation directly via PayPal to our email address, shamansistersessions@gmail.com. It does, we pay production costs and uploading fees for this, and we want it to continue to be free for you. So please know that even $1, if you choose to make a donation, $1, $10, $20, whatever it is helpful, and it's going directly to the production of the podcast. So thank you so much for your support, and we will see you next time for episode 100. Woo!
Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.
All right. That's it. I feel like there's something else. I feel like
Kat, what are you up to these days? How can people work with you?
Oh, just find me. Let's chat. Right now, I don't know what I'm doing next. Right now, I'm just looking at working with people one-on-one and making tools for healers and one-on-one and mentorship and healing work and intensive work. So if you want to come to my beautiful home in Santa Fe and spend some actual one-on-one time with me and stay here and do intensive work with me, doing morning practices and sitting and coaching and drinking tea and doing hands-on healing work and shamanic work and channeling work and activating your potential, and then bringing that potential to the world, then reach out, because I have some opportunities to do that with me this spring.
Mm-hmm. And she won't be grumpy about it. I can promise that. She'll be grumpy later. Okay. And then if you're interested in connecting with me or working with me, you can send me an email, michelle@joyofenergy.com, or find me through my website, joyofenergy.com. And I'm particularly working with people on embodiment and rewilding. So if you would like to embody wild and connect with your inner wild self and see what power and potential waits for you there, then let's go ahead and have a conversation about that. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.